Hey everyone, my name is Martin and today I'll be showing you how to produce Ghost by Justin Bieber. Before we start, I'd like to mention that the free download file, including the FLP, the stems and the MIDI files, will be unlocked down below once this video reaches 500 likes. So yeah, with that being said, let's now take a look at the production of Ghost by Justin Bieber, beginning with the lead that is played in the intro, and let's actually zoom in on its melody. Now the key of this song is D major, and the D major chord consists of D, F sharp and A. And what do we see in this melody? Well, we see a lot of Ds, F sharps and A's, and that's probably why it's so catchy. The melody is literally built around the D major chord and only uses 4 other notes that do not directly come from the D major chord. So for the sound, I've chosen the Indigo Melodist patch in Omnisphere, which can be found in the Synth Poly category. And once I stumbled upon it, I could definitely hear the potential in its voicing and texture, but it still needed some additional processing to get it to sound closer to the original lead. So I think the most important thing that's going on the mixer channel is the filtering, for which I'm using 2 instances of the free DJM filter. The first one serving as a low pass filter to kind of camouflage these very high and sharp frequencies, while the second one provides a high pass filter which does the exact opposite, which is removing the sound's low frequencies. So crucially, I automated both of these filters so that you get this really cool effect where both the highs and the lows of the sound are slowly introduced, which gradually makes the lead sound fuller as we move closer to the verse. And then I'm still using a couple of other effects with the main objective to make this filtered lead sound better and cleaner. So first we're using Decapitator to bring our sound more forward, then we have a tel chorus to bring out a lot more harmonics, followed by an equalizer to just clean up the sound a bit, especially in terms of getting rid of its low end, some overwhelming frequencies in the mids, and to tame the harsh high end even further. Then as always, we're also using an S1 imager to help make the lead sound a lot wider, as well as Vintage Verb that has a really long decay of 3.5 seconds, which helps carry the synth out way longer. And finally we're using Soothe to get rid of this unpleasant hissing, and this just makes our synth a lot less harsh. I then still wanted the lead to sound a bit fuller, which is why I also added this sound from the Cashmere preset pack in Serum, and this one just adds that extra bit of character and body to our lead sound. Then there are several other important sounds in this production which I identified as key elements, like this grand piano over here from Keyscape. So in the verse and chorus we hear this very common 6-4-1-5 progression, and what's interesting here is that the 5 chord has this D on top of the standard A major chord, which adds a lot of tension and emotion to the chord and actually to the entire chord progression. Then in the pre, the chord progression changes to a 2-3-4-4-6-5, which makes for a very nice variation and really builds up the tension to then switch back to our previously established chord progression. Another cool element is this bass, which is the Anthology patch from the Bass Factory preset folder in Serum, and this one just follows the chord's bass notes. So if you listen closely to the original, you'll notice that the bass actually also plays the perfect fifth of each bass note, which is why I duplicated this instance of Serum, I got rid of its low end, and then I let it play the perfect fifths of our bass notes, being F sharp, D, A, and E. So again, in terms of processing, the most noticeable thing that's happening is the filter automation process, which is similar to the technique I applied to the lead. And another plugin that stands out here is this DS10 drum shaper, which highlights the transients of the bass, making it sound sharper and more plucky. So in the pre, we're not using the Serum bass anymore, but we're actually using an 808 from the Sublab plugin, which offers some really clean and powerful 808 samples. But the problem with this specific preset was that it was not exactly in key, which I checked using this awesome FL Studio plugin called Tuner, which indeed confirmed my suspicion. So while playing this G over and over, I consequently started to turn up the channel pitch knob until I'd see a G in the Tuner plugin with something close to a 0 cent deviation. And then we get to my favorite part of this song, which is the acoustic guitar section. And this one was really challenging to recreate. So as always, I started messing with my beloved guitar libraries in Contact, but they just wouldn't sound right. And then I remembered somebody recommending me this Ample Guitar plugin in the YouTube comments, and I was like, well, let's give it a try. So within the Ample Guitar plugin, I stumbled upon this Wish You Were Here preset. I guess I just tweaked some settings here and there, and then I started playing the chords, and I was like, whoa, this sounds a lot better than the things I tried in the strummed acoustic plugin in Contact. So I exported this pattern to audio because its timing was slightly off in pattern mode, and then I added a couple of effects with the main goals of making the guitar sound fatter, more present and brighter, and finally wider. But then I felt our guitar was still lacking some body and some warmth, which is why I added this picked acoustic layer from Contact, which I processed in a similar way, but you can just feel that the overall guitar sound becomes so much richer and warmer after we add this layer. Now, speaking of layers, I'm also using this synth pad from the free Labs plugin to create these cool atmospheric background sounds in the verse, as well as these additional 2 presets from Keyscape to add that extra bit of character and attack to this very cool pre-chorus section. So let's now take a look at the drums and effects, and this is in my opinion where you can really hear the influence of Jon Bellion in this song, who is one of my favorite artists, producers and songwriters, and I feel that especially this scat sample over here is really Jon Bellion. So I found this sample in a beatbox pack on Splice, and then I added some effects like this free bit crusher plugin called Crush to crush it a little bit. Then there's a Pro Q to cut away most of the lows and to make the highs slightly more subtle, a DJ M filter to make the sound even more filtered, followed by a DS10 to cut away most of the tail of the sample in order to create the impression of a much stronger attack, an S1 imager to heavily spread out the sound, a vintage verb to create more of an atmosphere, and finally Pancake, which creates this panning effect that makes the sample move from left to right really quickly. Then for the kick, we're using this sample from Splice, which sounded quite heavy, and that's why I'm applying quite a lot of compression to tame that. And as I A/B this plugin, you'll be able to hear that a lot of this heavy low end disappears as we enable the compressor. Then for the percussion, I'm using a combination of 2 samples, of which one is more of a wooden percussive plug, while the other is a clap, and I've linked both samples to this bus, which allowed me to process them uniformly. So I'm using this volume automation here to make the overall clap percussion sound shorter and thereby tighter, and I'm also applying this reverb to both samples, but this one is only enabled right before the chorus. Finally, I'm using some really basic effect samples like sweeps, down sweeps, a crash, and reversed vocal, all to really just improve the transitions between segments and to add some sauce to the production. And I'd like to highlight one of these effects, which is this tonal ambience sound that I sampled from this longer cymatics sample. And particularly the combination of reverb and delay I'm applying here makes this one a really cool background effect in my opinion. And especially when we play this tonal ambience effect in conjunction with the other drums, the effects, and the Atmos synth, we can really hear how important adding small effects like these can be in terms of making a production sound more professional and interesting. And that's it for this week's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, as I'll be releasing the free FLP, the stems and the MIDI files once this video reaches 500 likes. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to ensure that you never miss a beat. Let's now listen to the final result of today's remake, and I'll see you next time.